Just a quick point of personal privilege. We'll ask Jamie Fleet to send down the CAO to get your space bar fixed, Mr. Chair. They will be there momentarily, I promise.
I think I was the problem, Rodney. I confess.
It's never user error, sir. Never.
Thank you.
Hey, I really enjoy these hearings, and I've traveled the country during the last Congress talking about many of these issues. And here's the good news: the vote suppressionists that we talk about in this subcommittee, they've been doing a pretty crappy job over the last 2 election cycles, because we had historic midterm turnout. We had historic turnout in 2020, which is great, because that meant as many eligible voters in the United States were able to cast a vote for their preferred candidates. And while we may not like the outcomes of elections, that's a positive that we all ought to celebrate. And that leads me to my question. So, Ms. Phillips, thanks again for being here today, again with all the witnesses. Give us your definition of list maintenance for the committee.
Certainly, list maintenance is ensuring that only eligible individuals are on the voter registration list.
Great. As you're aware, Section 8 of the NVRA governs the process for states to conduct list maintenance, which is critical for good election administration. Can you briefly describe the criteria and requirements that must be met in order for a state to remove a voter from its registration rolls?
Sure. Section 8 requires that list maintenance be conducted for registrants who are deceased and who have been moved. And there are certain fail-safes in there to ensure that voters are not removed unless certain criteria is met.
Great. There are many people who believe that voters are removed from their state's voter rolls solely as a result of not voting. That's not true, right?
That's not true.
And what makes a voter inactive?
It depends on state law. Oftentimes it is an indication from a number of sources that a voter has moved, a registrant has moved. For example, the National Change of Address database.
Okay. Speaking of that, can you describe the voter notification process and really the time frame that states must follow when removing inactive voters from the registration rolls according to law?
Absolutely. The problem is that this is state law specific, so it is difficult to explain every state's procedure. However, in general, there will be a notice sent to the address that is on file, and there will be steps that the registrant can take to confirm that the address is still valid. And then if the notice is returned to election officials, there are other steps that are then taken by the election official.
Okay, and some states actually do multiple notices, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You state that in your testimony that a significant problem facing America's electoral process is the chronic inaccuracy and lack of integrity in the voter rolls that lists the individuals registered to vote in local, state, and federal elections. Your foundation has conducted extensive research into the accuracy of various state voter rolls, right?
Correct.
In fact, your foundation has sued several states for failure to maintain accurate and current voter rolls as required by federal law, correct?
That's correct. We have sued counties and state election officials.
Okay. And through your foundation's work, have you discovered state voter rolls that contain more voters registered in a jurisdiction than eligible voters that live in that jurisdiction?
Yes.
Voters registered at commercial addresses rather than residential addresses?
Yes.
What about voters registered at vacant lots?
Yes.
Deceased voters, dead voters?
Yes.
I know I'm from Illinois. I shouldn't talk about that. Non-resident voters?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by non-resident voters? Not resident of the jurisdiction?
Correct.
Yes.
So what about duplicate registrations?
Yes.
Non-citizen voters?
Non-citizen registrants, yes.
Non-citizen registrants. Okay. Well, look, I think it's great to have these discussions. When we talk about vote fraud being infinitesimal, just such a small amount, it's just a little bit of fraud. Everything matters. Every instance of fraud matters. Remember, we did not seat a duly elected member from North Carolina's 9th district because of voter fraud and the ballot harvesting provisions that were not legal in North Carolina, but legal in California and others. There are so many processes right now in our election process that we need to delve into, but at the same time, we have to encourage the positivity of how well we've done as a country in every state across this nation in having historic voter turnout in the midterms and in the last election, the last presidential election. And I know some of my colleagues' heads might be exploding. They'll say turnout doesn't matter. Well, it did when we were figuring out, when our predecessors were figuring out what covered jurisdictions would be in the original Voting Rights Act. It mattered then. It should matter today, and we're doing things right in this country. And I thank all of our witnesses and my colleagues for being here today. I yield back.
Seeing this, I mean, we're starting to, Forbes is not that bad. So, and especially when they post a picture of freaking Biden's O face.
Unemployment benefits had any effect on diminishing a return to work in some categories?
No, nothing measurable. Thank you.
And Mr. President, do you...
On CDC mask mandates, I noticed you walked out to the podium with your mask on. Why do you choose to wear a mask so often when you're vaccinated and you're around other people who are
Because
vaccinated?
I'm worried about you. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Why am I wearing the mask? Because...
Yeah, he's not worried about any of us. He's a fucking selfish, pompous, fucking fuckface, fucking lying piece of fucking shit. Obama third term.
On the inside, it's still good policy to wear the mask. That's why. When I'm outside, and the problem is, lots of times I walk away from this podium, you notice I forget to put my mask back on because I'm used to not wearing it outside.
Mr. President, are you at all concerned about Vladimir Putin amassing troops on the border of Ukraine? Do you see that as a message to you, and could it impact your desire to have a one-on-one meeting with him?
Does not impact my desire to have the one-on-one meeting, and you notice he had more troops before. He's withdrawn troops. There's still troops amassed, but significantly less than he had a month ago. So
Sorry, Mr. President, do you believe that the Iranians are serious about negotiation in Vienna?
yes, but how serious and what they're prepared to do is a different story, but we're still talking. Sir, you had a question. I had to cut you off.
Do you have any update on whether you'll be able to meet Vladimir Putin in June? Is that going to happen?
I'm confident we'll be able to do it. We don't have any a specific time or place. That's being worked on. Thank you.
Agreed, sir?
What a fucking idiot. What a fucking idiot.